Begin in Egypt, where the pro-Morsi movement, National Coalition to Support Legitimacy, and the Muslim Brotherhood have said they're willing to join a national dialogue to solve the country's current political impasse. The joint statement included a number of points as a basis for the dialogue, demanding all forces, including the military, join the dialogue. Any resistance to the ouster of Morsi will be peaceful, that elections will be the only source of legitimacy, and that the military should return to barracks and democracy be retained through an agreed roadmap. The Brotherhood is expected to invite all forces to join the national dialogue within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the retrial of former President Hosni Mubarak resumed on Saturday in a closed session. Mubarak is on trial for the killing of demonstrators during the 25th of January uprisings, which led to his downfall. He was handed a life sentence that was later overturned by another court. Nasser Hakim has the details.
It's the first session since Mubarak was set free after 2 years behind bars pending his trial. There were 2 cases in front of court in its closed session. It listened to the testaments of former officials, the first pertaining to accusations that Mubarak ordered police to shoot at peaceful demonstrators during the 25th of January uprisings.
The assistant to the foreign minister presented documents from the Egyptian consulate in Ramallah, showing tens of police cars, ammunition and equipment stolen and smuggled to Gaza. The defense is trying to prove that foreign elements, not Mubarak and his aides, were responsible for the killings using stolen police apparatus.
The court also listened to former Prime Minister Ahmed Nadhif. Nadhif was head of government when gas export deals with Israel were signed.
Mubarak, his 2 sons and a business tycoon, Hussein Salem, are accused of corruption and embezzlement for selling gas to Israel at prices much lower than the international rates. Nadhif, as the then Prime Minister, is aware of the details and any profiteering that came out of it.
The sessions were secret. The court says it's because of issues of national security. Details of the hearings were not released to the media. The closed hearings will continue until next Monday. But this is just the first step in a long process after the court had overturned the life sentences against Mubarak and his aides. Yasser Hakim for CCTV, Cairo.
Yasser is live for us from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Yasser, let's begin with that joint statement saying the Muslim Brotherhood is ready for national dialogue. What's the likelihood of this getting underway in 2 weeks' time, and what steps need to be taken for this to happen?
What the Muslim Brotherhood said is that it will start to talk to the different leaders of the political forces in Egypt to try and get a meeting within the next 2 weeks and kickstart the national dialogue. The thing is, the reactions from the other side of the political spectrum were not so encouraging. In most, if you talk about the rebellion group, the one that was the catalyst behind the 30th of June uprising against Mohamed Morsi, while the leaders of this group said they disagree to any steps of reconciliation with the Muslim Brotherhood. They say it's too late. They say that a couple of months ago they have been calling for the Muslim Brotherhood to sit and speak, and the Muslim Brotherhood were the ones who refused to sit down, and they continued their demonstrations and violence in the streets. And that's what the rebellion group said. The head of the National Salvation Front, also it's a group of political parties, also refused to sit with to discuss the national dialogue, saying, first of all, the Muslim Brotherhood should recognize the 30th of June revolution. They should also agree to the current roadmap for the transitional government, and also to apologize for any wrongdoing in the past year. So whether the Muslim Brotherhood would agree to these conditions, it will be seen in the next few weeks.
So, Yasser, let's now move to Mubarak's retrial. What's the latest with the court proceedings, and how is the trial likely to unfold?
It's still at the very beginning. It's the first step. The hearings, it's closed hearings, the sessions, so we don't know a lot of information about what is going on inside. But what we are sure of is that it will take a long time, not less than 6 to 7 months at least, before we can get any verdict out of this court. The judicial process is slow. The trial is starting all over again after it was overturned the last time around. So the last time it took around 2 years for a verdict. and now we're starting all over again, it could take maybe 7 to 8 months. At this point, it's just hearings, and the next step, maybe in a month or so, there will be more deliberations by the defense before even getting a verdict into place.
All right, Yasser Hakim live there for us in Cairo. Thank you, Yasser, for joining us. Now, the United Nations Security Council's rejection of an African Union-sponsored proposal to defer the International Criminal Court trials against Kenya's president and deputy president has sparked a diplomatic storm. African nations represented at the council reacted with fury to the rebuff, terming it a deliberate humiliation of the continent. CCTV's UN correspondent Stephen Fee has more.
Let it be written today in history that the Security Council failed Kenya and Africa on this issue.
Powerful words from Rwanda's UN envoy, sponsor of the resolution to defer trials for Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto for 1 year. 7 countries voted in favor of the measure, including permanent members China and Russia, as well as the African states that sit on the 15-member body.
What they've been asking for is that the popularly elected leaders of Kenya be accorded the most basic respect. In matters involving African peace, security, and stability, African countries are the ones who knows about their needs the best.
But it wasn't enough. The resolution needed 9 votes to be approved. 7 of the 8 members who abstained are party to the ICC, including France.
The choice has been made to move forward hastily, and we certainly don't understand why. This is useless and is fraught with risks that we would like to avoid.
Following the September Nairobi shopping mall attack by the al-Qaeda-linked group al-Shabaab, in which 67 civilians died, Kenya claimed the ICC trials would jeopardize regional peace and security.
Sadly, for some in this council, the heartbreaking loss of lives and scores of shattered bodies at Westgate Mall does not meet an unspecified imaginary threshold for Article 16.
Under Article 16 of the treaty that established the court, the Security Council has the ability to delay ICC trials for 12 months.
So the idea of Article 16 in the UN, in the Rome Statute, was essentially to allow for the possibility of when justice attempts were in some way a threat to the peace, that the UN Security Council would be able to postpone for a year, and that would be renewable. But the idea is really that that was would be in exceptional circumstances.
ICC member states are expected to meet in the coming days to alleviate some of Kenya's concerns. Deputy President Ruto's trial began earlier this fall, but after 3 delays, President Kenyatta's proceedings won't begin until February. Stephen Fee, CCTV, New York.
Kenya, through a statement from its Foreign Affairs Ministry, also expressed outrage at the vote. The statement described the 8 countries who abstained from the vote as engaging in a cowardly act. Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto, however, expressed his gratitude to the nations that supported the deferral bid.
I want to be very clear that Kenya as a country, we want to respect especially those who stood with us. We now can say we have genuine, legitimate, consistent friends. And I want to assure the country that we have a plan. We know what to do. We will work with any difficult situation. We have been there before. We know how to take this thing forward. The country is safe, and we want to assure Kenyans that they must stay focused because we must develop our country. In any case, they say adversity is the mother of invention.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break. Coming up. Saving the planet, the latest from the ongoing climate change talks in Warsaw. And boosting Ethiopia's education, students benefit from China-Ethiopia friendship.
UN-backed Congolese forces have finally driven out General Sultani Makenga and his M23 rebels, ending a bloody civil war in the eastern Congo.
The M23 says it has done what it was asked to do, and now the international community must push for a peace deal.
Can peace finally come to this vast African country? We answer that question this week in Talk Africa.
The ongoing United Nations Convention on Climate Change in Poland and the challenges of funding green economies across the globe have sparked a heated debate. CCTV's Grum Chala with more from the Polish capital, Warsaw.
According to analysts, much effort now should be on redesigning the world's economies for safer environment, placing emphasis on high resilience, low carbon and high growth. But for this to be achieved, financing is key.
We see that the world needs massive amounts of investments. Over the next 2 decades, half of world GDP, that's huge. And money is shy, it's not going to go everywhere. We need, for policymakers, if they want to have investments in their country, to have solid, robust framework.
Many of the participants here agree the lack of a globally agreed framework for carbon pricing will impede investments from flowing into clean energy and low carbon projects. And the developing world, including Africa, is finding it almost unimaginable to inject funding in this relatively unknown area.
I think Africa cannot be expected to wait for development and only have clean technologies. I think it should have the mix, but there are ways to do that have less impact on climate change, and in the medium to longer term will be more in the interest, the economic and social interest of countries in Africa.
What this therefore means is that policymakers in Africa must refocus to matters of environment. When heads of state and ministers meet by the end of next week, they will have plenty on their tables to deliberate on. The hope is simple: striking a legally binding agreement on climate change. And if this happens, the Warsaw Climate Change Conference will be remembered in history for perhaps saving the world. Well, at least on papers. Grumjala, CCTV, Warsaw, Poland.
Officials in the U.S. have crushed more than 6 tons of confiscated ivory. The stockpile was amassed over more than 20 years from ivory seized at U.S. borders. The government wants to raise awareness of the damage the illegal ivory trade is inflicting on elephants, especially in Africa. CCTV correspondent Steve Mort has more.
These ornaments look like they belong in an elegant living room, but they're here to be smashed into tiny bits.
What you see here is a fraction of the worldwide traffic, illegal traffic in ivory.
The US government organized this ivory crush at a time when global demand for the precious material is soaring. Crushing's used because ivory is highly resistant to fire. The 6 tons of ivory crushed here in Denver represent an estimated 1,000 elephants, taken out of the wild and killed as part of the lucrative ivory trade. The trade in ivory was banned by an international treaty in 1989, but demand continues to climb, and some experts predict the elephant could soon be extinct.
You can argue about the statistic of how many elephants are left in the world, 300,000, 400, 500,000. But when you do the math, if we continue on the path today, all of those elephants will die within a 10-year period.
These days, the biggest market for ivory by far is Asia. China allows the sale of what's called pre-prohibition ivory, that which was harvested before the 1989 ban. But a large illegal market still exists there.
China probably consumes between 70 and 90% of the world's ivory. That means that they are necessarily a part of the solution. Because in one act, if they ban domestic trade in ivory, that would dry up 70 to 90% of the demand. Prices of ivory would collapse.
Earlier this month, Chinese customs officials said they'd busted 2 international smuggling rings responsible for trafficking nearly $100 million of elephant ivory from Africa to China. China's repeatedly said it's determined to work with the international community to curb the ivory trade and protect wild elephants. Hollywood stars came to the Ivory Crush to show their support for elephant conservation. That included Kristen Davis, star of the hit television show Sex and the City.
Americans believe that other people in other countries are the only people buying ivory, which is not the case. We are the second biggest market for illegal wildlife trade. That is huge. So if we can stop the demand here, first of all, it's going to really lessen the demand in the world, but also we're leading through example.
Most experts agree that events like these are very effective at raising awareness. But conservationists say the best way to stop the killing of elephants is to educate the people who poach them.
I wish today we could have just gotten few poachers, whenever they are, to come and witness and see the byproduct of what comes after the ivory, because there is a disconnect between them killing elephants and what comes after the ivory.
This was the first time US officials have destroyed such a large supply of ivory. It's part of a new push to halt wildlife trafficking announced by President Obama during his tour of Africa last summer. Steve Mort, CCTV, Denver.
China is giving Ethiopia's education sector a boost. As part of the China-Africa Friend School project, the construction of a school was officially launched in the capital Addis Ababa. Clementine Logan has more.
China's lending Ethiopia's education sector a helping hand. An international school project was launched in the capital Addis Ababa to help with the shortage of schools for new settlers in the city. Education is one of the key areas on which Ethio-China cooperation was founded. Since 1970, the two states have been building on their political, economic, cultural and educational cooperation.
In the area of education, China and Ethiopia have implemented various cooperation projects, from scholarships to training programs, from construction of schools to provision of teaching equipment.
In 2009, China built 3 schools in rural parts of the country in a bid to increase access to education, particularly for girls. And over the past decade, the Chinese government has sent more than 300 Chinese agricultural experts to Ethiopia. They've helped train more than 1,000 local teachers and 25,000 college students. Once completed, this latest school will provide an education to the community who were moved from the city centre to the suburbs under the government's new housing scheme.
The meaning of this school construction has really has a lot of meanings. In terms of its meaning is assuring education quality, and in terms of providing access for the people and to maintain the MDG issues. So its meaning and its contribution is really great for us.
The China-Africa Friendship School project is employing more than 100 Ethiopians to get the job done and is due to be completed in under 2 years' time. Clementine Logan, CCTV.